today I'm trying 3 lunchbox recipes from the 1950s. You really seem to enjoy my last lunchbox video, so I thought let's do another one from a different decade. So this time I'm cooking from the Lunch Box Cookbook. This was published in 1954 and it comes to us from the Culinary Arts Institute. So I'll talk a little bit more about this book later. I'm doing a complete menu today, so like an actual lunchbox menu that you could take with you somewhere. And it's going to consist of a sandwich, a soup, and a little treat, because every lunchbox needs a little treat if you ask me. I'm going to start with the soup for a very specific reason. And that reason is this thermos. I picked this up at Aldi in the special buys aisle. You gotta love that special buys aisle for $6.99. And I thought, okay, $6.99, I'm willing to take a risk. So the reason I'm starting with the soup is because I wanna see how long it will actually stay warm in here. I went through a period of time when I was maybe like in the 4th or 5th grade where my mom would send a thermos of soup or casserole or leftovers or whatever with me. So we had a bottle kind of like this. Mine, I think, was a bit taller and it was lined in glass. This one does not have the glass, but it is vacuum sealed and insulated. And also, surprise, surprise, I loved this. It comes with a little fold out spoon, which how dang cute, right? So you fold it up, you put it back in here, and you have a spoon with you all the time. I want to see if the soup will actually stay warm for the amount of time that it takes me to cook this entire menu. I'm kicking things off with this easy tomato bouillon soup. And this soup is indeed easy. It starts with a can of condensed beef broth. And to that, I have to add 1 1/4 cups of tomato juice. I'm using V8, folks, and I understand that this is not purely tomato juice, it is vegetable juice. But I have a lot of this left from a previous recipe I did for my 4-H video, so please don't come after me because this is what I'm using. That was almost exactly 1 1/4 cups. And now I have a couple of more things to add. I have 1/8 teaspoon of celery seed, yes, celery seed, 1/8 teaspoon of MSG. If this does not agree with you, if you do not like to use this, please leave it out. And then 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, and just a little bit of pepper. So I'm gonna put some heat under that, stir it all together, and then I have to bring this just to a boil. The soup is just starting to boil, so I think it's time to transfer it into my fancy thermos. Next, I'm making a little treat for the lunchbox, and that is these peanut butter bars. I'm pretty sure these are going to be very similar to peanut butter cookies in bar form. So you do need a specifically sized pan for these, and that's going to be a 15.5 by 10.5 by 1 inch pan. I have mine set out, and then I have some parchment paper on it because I want to make a little sling so that I can get those bars out pretty easily. First, I'm going to start with the dry ingredients, and that consists of 1 1/4 cups of flour, and I'm just going to sift this all together. 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So once I have this sifted, I'll set it aside and move on to the wet ingredients. I have 1/2 cup of softened butter, maybe. There she is. 1/2 cup of peanut butter. I went with crunchy peanut butter because I had some left from another recipe. I think it's probably gonna be okay. Don't send the peanut butter police after me. The peanut butter police sounds like they would be characters from McDonald Land. And then 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. I'm just gonna mix that all together until it's well combined. All right, that looks well combined to me. And this smells incredible. I mean, it's just peanut butter, butter, and vanilla, but I mean, heck. It smells so good and it's so soft and luxurious. And now I have to add my sugar, and that's 1/2 cup of white sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I'm just supposed to add a little bit at a time. Crumble a little of that in there. Hello. Wow, light and fluffy and so pretty. And I have one more wet ingredient, and that is 1 beaten egg. Well beaten, it says. supposed to add just a little bit. Let's get that spatula out of there. And I have to beat this until it is fluffy after each addition. I would say that is well combined and fluffy. Coming back in with my dry ingredients, and I have to blend those in. Okay. Dry ingredients are in there. And now I have my pan here. I've lined it with a little parchment paper. The reason I really want to lift these out is because I have to cut them while they're warm, and I just think that's going to be easier to do if I have that little bit of insurance. Offset spatula, because always offset spatula for me. All right, ready to go into a 375-degree oven for about 20 minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on them since this is a new recipe to me and I've never made them before. Parchment paper worked exactly the way I wanted it to. It did crack just slightly in the middle, but I think it's fine. And now I'm gonna cut them. And what was it that they said? Cut them into 3 by 1.5 inch bars. I'm not in love with that size. I don't know. It's kind of long and skinny. I might just do like a 2 by 2 kind of thing. So I have my flexible gridded ruler. I'm just gonna square up the edges like a little. And I know I'm not gonna cut these perfectly either, but again, who cares? So you definitely want to cut these. I let them cool maybe 5 minutes, but definitely you want them to be warm because they do start to crisp up, I think. This is a 2-inch wide. You can't really see it because it's clear, kind of, but it's 2 inches wide. That's why I like to use it to cut bars because it just makes it easier to follow. And this bit, of course, this is a treat. This is the perfect ones go to people. The little edges, you know, they're just for fun. We're gonna go about like that. Like that. I like the squares. I don't know. If you like to cut them into a different shape, you just do what you want. But that is what we have. And I think it's gonna be the perfect little treat for my lunchbox. Lastly, I'm making a very simple bacon and cheese sandwich. And I'm starting with 2 slices of just standard white sandwich bread. Just use what you want. Whatever you like. It's your lunchbox. This one's mine though. First, I have to spread these slices of bread with something that they call tempter butter. And that's basically just a homemade herb butter. I mixed this up a little while ago. I did that by placing 1/4 cup of very soft butter in my bowl. To that, I added 1/2 teaspoon of lime juice. It said you could use lemon or lime, and I happen to have a lot of limes right now. And I just mixed that together until it was well combined. Once that was mixed together, I added 1/2 tablespoon of chopped chives. You can also use parsley or mint, or there's a whole list of fresh herbs that you can use. But I have a pot of chives outside my back door, so that's what I used. And this is what it looks like. So got my chive butter here, way more than I need, I might add. So I'll probably put this on a baked potato or something. I don't know yet. Garlic bread, question mark. So I'm gonna spread that. I think it looks really pretty with the chives in there. See, look at those little flecks of green. On top of that, I'm placing 1 slice of sharp cheddar cheese. It says use whatever cheese you want. That's the one I want. And a couple of slices of bacon. I actually cooked this up this morning and warmed it up in the microwave. That couldn't be simpler, right? I wanted to keep all of these recipes really simple because I don't think that your lunchbox has to be super complicated to be good. There we go. Now it's time to pack it all up. The time has come to sample my lunchbox fare that I put together. And I'm gonna start with this soup because, let's see, it's been about 1 hour and 45 minutes. I can't wait to see if this actually stayed warm. It feels warm. I can feel it through the lid. I'm gonna take out my cute little spoon because I wanna try that too. Oh, the spoon is warm. Okay, All right, opening this up, it has sort of some ridges that make it a little bit easier to open, to like grip onto. It's steaming, so yeah, it definitely stayed warm. Okay, you know what? This smells exactly like Campbell's vegetable soup. And I did use Campbell's beef broth, so maybe that's why. Kind of looks like it too. This is funny. Spoon is a little shallow, so maybe I would take my own spoon. Oh, that is perfect. Like, it's the perfect warmth. It didn't burn my mouth. I put it in here and it was boiling. It's still steaming. Tastes pretty much exactly like Campbell's vegetable soup. I could add some alphabet noodles and some carrots, potatoes, and peas to this, and I think I could fool people into thinking this is Campbell's vegetable soup. And the recipe that I made for this Tomato-Bouillon, it's the base recipe. Some cookbooks do this, especially the Culinary Arts Institute cookbooks. They have a base recipe, and then you can make like 5 other recipes out of that base recipe by adding things to it. So that's kind of like what this is meant to be. You know, if you wanted to add vegetables to this, you definitely could. It's kind of nice because this is like very sippable as well. Like if you wanted to have that in a mug. It tastes pretty good. So now I've got my little bento style box here. I got this from a FabFitFun box several years ago, and it's got layers. So I have my sandwich in the bottom, and then I have my peanut butter bar in the top. And this also has its own little like tray with utensils, so I could use this for my soup as well. This is probably gonna taste good because it's bacon, cheese, and chives. Mmm. It's the chives. The chives make this so good. And I know it's a very simple sandwich. You know, bacon, cheese, and chivy butter, basically. But it almost tastes like cream cheese. Super simple sandwich to put together, and also not like a deli meat sandwich. Sometimes when I buy deli meat, I try to buy small quantities, but it just takes a long time for us to eat. So that's why I kind of like this, because we pretty much always have bacon, like cooked bacon on hand. I do usually cook 1 package at a time in the oven, and then, you know, whatever kind of cheese you have mixed with some herby butter, it's a pretty dang good sandwich. Okay, no chives in my teeth. All right, so the top layer here holds my little peanut butter bar. How cute. These smelled very good while they were baking. This one has cooled quite a bit. It still is a little bit soft. This is probably, I think I cut this more from like the center of the pan. It's just like a simple little peanut butter cookie. You know, there's no chocolate chips in it. It's not like in your face peanut butter extreme cookie. Like, this is the simplest peanut butter cookie that you could probably make. You didn't even have to roll them into balls and roll the balls in sugar or anything. You just like spread them in a pan and bake them. But they are like, they're just like wholesome and tasty. This whole lunch is just, it's very simple. It's not extra fancy or extra special, but I think, you know, I would love to have this any day. And I have my special little containers that I like to use when I'm taking my lunch somewhere. I don't do it as often anymore, but something about like having special little containers or a special lunchbox that's like all your own, it makes it a little bit nicer, I guess. It brings me a little bit of joy. All right, well, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna have my lunch. I'll take a day or two to kind of like think about what I liked, what I didn't like, and then I'll be back with my final thoughts. The Lunch Box Cookbook was published in 1954, and it comes to us from the Culinary Arts Institute. And I've cooked from some Culinary Arts Institute books before, and that includes one of the big ones that I used for my latest Full Day of 1950s Meals video. And I did talk about the Culinary Arts Institute a little bit in that video, but Kevin over from Cavalcade Food has done an entire video on the Culinary Arts Institute. I feel like I just keep saying that over and over. I'm gonna link his video in the description down below because it goes into great detail on what it was, you know, what kinds of cookbooks they produce, that kind of thing. But just generally, the Culinary Arts Institute was based in Chicago, and the home economists that worked there tested out recipes for publication, and they produced so many cookbooks. Oh my gosh. If you're a cookbook collector, I mean, you've seen one of these, at least one, if not many, many more. I have another one here I'll show you. This is the Lunch Box Cookbook, but this is the Brunch, Breakfast, and Morning Coffee Cookbook. And you can even see in the corners here, if I can get it to focus, this says 105, this says 107. So a lot of these cookbooks were numbered, and you could collect them in different series and then put them in a binder. They had a special binder that you could get and just compile all of them. And it wasn't limited to things like meal-specific cookbooks. There were cookbooks from different nationalities, the French cookbook, the Swiss cookbook, the this cookbook, the that cookbook. I know that there are recipes for children, that kind of thing. They just produce, I don't even know how many cookbooks, a lot of these little tiny ones, and then some larger, like they would compile these into like a larger, thicker cookbook like the one I used in that 1950s video. They would reprint these like into the 70s. So this one actually was produced in the 1950s, but they'll take the same contents that are inside and they'll put it in a book and print it later. That happens sometimes. I have a few examples in my collection. So what I found with these books is that a lot of times in each section, there will be a few base recipes. So I made a base recipe for the soup that I made. It was a Tomato-Bouillon, I believe it was called. Well, here's one that is cream of carrot soup, and that's the base recipe. So you can make the base recipe, you can eat it that way. But for the cream of carrot soup, if you take the base recipe and you sub in onions for the carrots, I think it's saying, you can make cream of onion soup, or the same with celery or asparagus. So you can take that base recipe and change a few things or add a few things to it, and you have a whole new dish. That is what I have found in these books, is that they rely a lot on those base recipes. And you'll see that come up in other vintage cookbooks, especially, maybe now too. I don't notice it in as many new cookbooks, but I think, for example, in the Betty Crocker picture cookbook, Big Red, you'll see something called key recipes. That's kind of the same as like a base recipe. So something that you make and you start off with one thing and you change or add other ingredients to it and you come up with a different dish. I think these books have very cute illustrations. So I'm just gonna show you a few of those. The top of the page here where it says sandwich fillings. There's also a lot of 2-color printing in these books. So this is like pink and black. This page is orange and black. This 2-page spread, it's yellow and black. Lots of black and white photos as well. Oh, we've got another cute little illustration here with some kids eating fried chicken. And usually these little illustrations are just little sketches that are spread throughout the different pages. I don't know, I love them. Of course, it's one of the things I just love about vintage cookbooks. Look at that. I think these construction workers are swapping a piece of cake there. Oh my gosh, look how tiny that one is in the corner of the page. Adorable. Yeah, I could spend the entire video just going through all of these illustrations. I love looking at these. I love showing them. And there's just too many good ones. Too many good ones in here. Oh, look at these folks on their commute. And I believe all of the Culinary Arts Institute books that I've seen anyway, they mostly all start with this, like it's the section that says, it's smart to be careful. And it just goes over some safety in the kitchen, a checklist for successful baking. And then we go right into the recipes. So the first chapter is about soups. We've got breads, sandwich fillings. So a lot of times nowadays, I think, in general, when we like think sandwiches, a lot of times like my mind personally, I think like a turkey sandwich, a ham sandwich, like a deli meat sandwich. That's not something that's like very abundant in this book. A lot of the sandwiches are made with sandwich fillings. So like an egg salad or a tuna salad or ham salad, that kind of thing. Or like the sandwich that I made. Oh, and then this is a great little section. It says side steps to sandwich and salad making. And that consists of things like condiments, spreads, dressings. So they have your basic mayonnaise recipe in here. They have a tartar sauce recipe. They also, I liked this one, they have a peanut butter recipe, a blended peanut butter recipe. I mean, that's basically peanut butter is like blended up peanuts, cashew butter. I like peanut butter. I don't like it enough to make my own. I did buy the peanut butter in those peanut butter bars at the store, but how to hard cook eggs. So basically like how to set yourself up for success when you're making these different sandwiches and sandwich fillings. Sorry, if my face changed a little there. I just came across the recipe for simmered heart. I am not judging anybody who eats that, but it's not for me. In addition to your sandwiches, your soups, etc., there's also a section for main dishes. So things that are maybe like a little bit hearty, like a little bit more substantial, like fried chicken. We've got Swedish meatballs, ham and pineapple turnovers. I'd probably love that. The simmered heart is in there. Lunchbox chicken. baked bean mix-up. So, you know, luncheon dishes that are not your typical sandwich. There's a little section on salads in here. So potato salads, coleslaw, that kind of thing. Not really your garden salads. Oh, they have an apple slaw. I would love to try that one. A deviled egg recipe, stuffed tomato shells. I have been very much thinking about tomatoes lately. I just recently did a video about tomato recipes since tomato season is in full swing here. If you haven't watched that, please do. I'll link it in the description down below. Very important to have that dessert section because we need a little treat in that lunchbox, don't we? Oh my goodness, we've got cakes and cupcakes. Joe Froggers. I wonder if those are like molasses cookies. What's a Joe Frogger? Ginger, baking powder, cloves. So like a spice cookie, a molasses spice cookie. Mincemeat triangles, sugar cookies. I think a lot of these cookies, just looking through them and based on what I'm seeing and the little treat I made for my lunchbox, these cookies are going to travel well. They're going to like pack well and be a little bit sturdy. You're not going to get like super duper delicate little things in here. Oh, there's even some beverages in here. I did not make a beverage today. Oh, and then there's a little chapter called Special Days, and that's things that you can make for holidays. Okay, so I am ready to talk about the recipes I chose from this book, maybe why I chose them. I don't carry my lunch anywhere a lot these days. I used to pack my lunch quite a bit when I worked outside my house. You know, I always liked having different ideas. I often took leftovers because most of the places that I worked in had microwaves and things like that. But I think having some lunch ideas where maybe you don't have access to refrigeration or a microwave to warm something up, it's a good idea to kind of have a few of those because you never know what you're going to be up to. Maybe you want to take something on a road trip and you want to take some of your own food with you. We did that all the time when I was a kid. I genuinely think there maybe weren't quite as many places to stop on road trips or vacations and things like that when I was a kid. Like maybe just either not as many or I just didn't notice them. Often we would take a cooler and usually we could find like a picnic area. I seem to remember stopping at a lot of picnic areas and we would make our own lunches there. So, you know, having something that you can maybe just add an ice pack to like an insulated bag or take, like I did, take a thermos of soup or whatever that you want to keep warm and carry it with you. I think it's a good idea to have that sometimes. So the first recipe I put together was easy tomato bouillon soup. I'm not gonna lie here. I wanted to make this because I have V8 juice left over from a previous video. So I decided to use it in this and it tasted really good. I do have some of it left in my refrigerator. I think I'm gonna add just like some frozen mixed vegetables to that and have it as like a vegetable soup. I actually did like it just as more of a broth that you could spoon or sip or whatever. Sometimes, especially in the winter, I do like to sip a little bit of broth from a mug in the afternoons when it's cold outside. There wasn't much to this soup. It was beef broth, it was tomato juice, vegetable juice in my case, and a couple of spices. But I don't think it has to be complicated or take a long time to make something that tastes good to take in your lunch. And that's why I chose all of these recipes. I wanted them to be simple, maybe some things that you could possibly put together in advance, but not too complicated. I think soup can be a really good start to a lunch, you know, warm you up a little bit if it's cold. My thermos, my little insulated thermos that I got at Aldi was successful. I was very excited about that. It did work out, and I'm confident that it would have kept the soup hot longer than a couple of hours. I just, you know, that's the amount of time that I tested it out because I was trying to film this entire process. And yes, that soup did taste exactly like Campbell's vegetable soup. So the next recipe I tried was for these peanut butter bars. And these were good. They were very delicious. Just a very simple, very basic peanut butter cookie in bar form. I mentioned earlier, like the cookies and things in this cookbook are probably meant to travel and pack very well. And I think these were no exception. They were sturdy. They were still chewy. I will say that. They were still chewy, but sturdy enough that they weren't gonna get like smashed or cracked or anything like that if you knocked them around or carried them in a lunchbox and skipped along. They reminded me of something that you would maybe get in a school cafeteria. So kind of nostalgic in that way too, kind of wholesome in that way. Just your most basic peanut butter cookie. It wasn't rolled in sugar, there were no chocolate chips, it wasn't fancy, but it got the job done, right? It was a little treat, it tasted good, it was a nice little sweet ending to the meal. And if someone in your life is a fan of cookies, especially peanut butter cookies, I don't think they're gonna turn one of these down with a glass of milk. finally, my cheese and bacon sandwich. I think this was possibly the most surprising thing I made today. I didn't think it was going to taste bad. I've said that often where when I choose a recipe, usually I don't think it's going to taste bad. I just didn't think it was going to be as tasty as it was. It was a real surprise. I was keeping my expectations low, as I sometimes do when I'm trying new recipes. But this, it was so good for what it was. It could have had a lot to do with the combination of things I chose. I think the sharp cheddar has a lot of flavor, so that was something that was really good. And then the chive butter. I think honestly, the chive butter was what made this entire sandwich. And I mentioned as I was tasting it, that it kind of reminded me of like cream cheese, like maybe there was cream cheese in the sandwich. So what I think it was, when I kind of sat down, I ate the rest of it and then thought about it a little bit. I think the reason that it tasted like it had cream cheese in it is because of the citrus that you add to the butter. And at first I thought, okay, adding lime juice, because I probably should have gotten a lemon. I didn't have one, I just had limes. It said you could use either. I was like, I don't know, this could taste weird. It didn't, it was fine. But that little bit of acid, that little tanginess added to the butter with the chives made it taste like chive cream cheese to me. And then you had that nice sharp cheddar flavor, the saltiness of the bacon, and I just used your standard white sandwich bread. Use whatever you want. That's just what I had on hand. And it was so, so good. So much better than I thought. I ate half of it as I was doing the taste test and for my lunch that day with the other things. And then I saved the other half and I had that the next day for lunch. And I mean, it held up beautifully. It was so good. As good, if not better, the next day. I don't know. The sandwich is kind of a mystery to me. I know all of the ingredients taste good individually, but it's so simple that it seems like it shouldn't be as delicious as it was. But I loved it and I'm gonna make it again. Overall, I think that the 3 recipes I chose made like a really good lunchbox. That nice, warm, salty, tomatoey, beefy kind of like broth, that bouillon, and then your cold sandwich that had a lot of, I just explained all the great qualities of that sandwich, and then to end with a nice little sweet treat. Like, I think that's very well-rounded. Like, that is what I want out of a lunch. So I hope you enjoyed watching me make these recipes, and I hope maybe you got a few new ideas for your lunchbox. If you love cookbooks and recipes from the 1950s, I have an entire playlist and I will link it in the description down below. I am on Patreon, so if you'd like to support me over there, I'll leave a link down below so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.